And after some technical difficulties on our end, we are back here for continuing our episode breaking down the Cardinals. I'm Troy John, joined by Twins Insider. Unfortunately, Twin Central had to leave, but we're back to finally give our series takeaways around the American League Central and upcoming preview against the Texas Rangers, starting in about an hour or so as we're recording this. But first, we'll start with our series takeaways. I'm going to start here with it was a good rhythm for the offense all weekend. Even though they lost in the middle game, they had some really good at bats in that game as well. Of course, we've mentioned Royce Lewis, but Ryan Kreidler coming up big as well. Luke Keeschel hit his first home run since late April. He generally looked really good. Byron Buxton was named American League Player of the Week earlier today, and it was because he had a big series against the Cardinals, hit a couple of home runs, and really just the offense was in good rhythm all week, and it was really good weekend. It was really good to see. It would also be really nice if Kalen Culpepper was here, but that glute injury, bad timing. But overall, for the offense, it was a really good weekend for them, and it hopefully can continue going into this series against Texas.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Buxton, congrats on the AL Player of the Week, and that was actually Will's takeaway. It was just that Buck is such a pleasure to watch, and I think we'd all agree with that. I think you could put Royce in there, you could put Ryan, you could put a lot of Twins players in there right now. Centrals, I'll do. He didn't actually put one down, but just from kind of talking with him off mic and in our chat, I think he's not a huge believer in this Cardinals team, so his is kind of he wants to see more, like he wants to see you build off of this, which I think is totally fair. The Rangers are beatable, the D-backs are beatable, so he's kind of watching this upcoming week with some watchful eyes. Mine was just that Austin Martin's struggles have been really hard to watch because we all like him, we all believed in him. It's been hard to see that kind of fall apart. And that Saturday game, he kind of took them into the field, and he made a couple really bad plays in the field that cost the team runs. And whenever your struggles start to go into the field with you, it's probably time for a reset. And again, we talked about it. If Fedco's plays well, you're probably going to see that reset.
Yeah, it's just been unfortunate with Martin. Over in the first month, where he was hitting over 300s, average was comfortably in the 300s. His OPS was above average as well. But since then, really since I would say the middle of May to late May, really, he finished May with just 229 batting average. So far in June, he's hit 135, and over his last 30 games, he's hit 158 with a 238 slugging, a 241 on base percentage, 60 got 0.67 batting average in his last 7 games, 1 for his last 15, 5 for his last 46. So it's again just been a really rough going for him. His splits still look good against lefties. So at the very least, I do applaud Shelton for realizing that he's still good against lefties. He's giving him more chances against left-handed pitching, but he stopped hitting him against righties because at some point you kind of realize that he's kind of not an everyday player. He's a guy that can be really good in a platoon role with another good right hitting outfielder, but it's got to a point, and Shelton made that move about a week or two or so. But it's good that he realized that, and hopefully it gets him going at some point, especially against lefties.
Yeah, it's just like this sometimes happens. You go up, you go down, but let's get into our around the AL Central takeaways here, and it was quite a busy week. We'll start with some negatives. Jose Ramirez, who obviously, if you're a Twins fan, you might be happy that it hurts Cleveland, but it is bad for the game. It's always bad for any sport when the best players are hurt. And Jose Ramirez has a left hamate fracture. That is, just like with Jeffers, that's a 4 to 6 or maybe 6 to 8 week injury. He broke it in like 2018 and came back in 4 weeks, but he's a little older. And even when you come back, the power is oftentimes lacking. That honestly, I don't know if it would end. I'd say it ends Cleveland's season, but it really will hurt them. It's going to hurt their lineup. It's going to hurt their defense. It's going to, put more pressure on guys like Bazana and DeLauder. And speaking of DeLauder, in that same game on Saturday, DeLauder got a side injury, and Angel Martinez fouled a ball off his foot and left the game with an injury. So it sounds like CDL and Martinez are mostly okay, but just a rough game for them, and not a team. I know they were like second in least IL days. So when it rains, it pours, and I don't think they have great depth. So they're going to struggle.
Yeah, and just especially before DeLauder got hurt, he's been on a really rough stretch as of late. Bazana's been hitting fine, but ever really since the Water had a really hot first week where he hit a home run in basically every game. His OPS is around 745. It's not bad, but compared to the dizzying heights he was on just about a month or so ago, he's had a really he's had just ran into kind of that rookie wall like Connor Phillips has had over the last week or so, and that happens for rookies. You're not totally worried for him right now. You're not fully worried about a lot of the younger guys in the roster. You're giving a lot of younger guys chances like Bazana as well. You know, these guys are going to struggle at some point. They're not perfect, but you know, it's been rough going through a lot of their young players. And like you said, their depth isn't that great. And also, the Royals have suffered a lot of injuries as well. It's been a rough season for the Royals just in general. But Kyle Isbell is out for the season with a great tear of plantar fasciitis. That's an injury that fans have gotten used to as of late. But Pasquantino was also hurt as well. It's been a rough stretch for him this season. And now he's down with a right hamate injury. Tarek Skubal, though, returned to the mound on Saturday for the Tigers. So it's good to see the two-time defending Cy Young Award winner, back in the game. Although he only pitched 4 2/3 innings, he still looked okay for the most part. Just a guy that was coming off an injury that a lot of people thought would end his season. And the White Sox are now first place in the American League Central. And even though the White Sox, we were lower on them in the podcast, but even those that were higher on the White Sox in preseason thought, they would be in the middle of it, in the middle of the AL Central, not at first place right now. They just had a big series wins against the Dodgers.
Yeah, and that was but the series before it took 2 out of 3 from the Braves. So I don't I might this reminds me of 2022 Cleveland. I'm just going to go to the grave saying that they're bad because why not? But I they've every week that goes on, they continue to look better because it's less fluky with more games. And this is I think when we did those predictions, I think I said something to the effect of basically they suck, blah 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 blah. And then I said, when they win the World Series, you can clip this and I'll look like an idiot. So you're welcome, White Sox fans. So I at least covered my bases. So, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, and what's scary about it is they're doing it without Munetaka Murakami, who was their superstar basically for the first month and a half, and without one of their young starting pitchers in Noah Schultz. They've given Brain Montgomery, between Yoshida, some chances, and they played pretty well. And this is a roster
And no
that
Teal. No Teal
no
either.
Teal and no Kyle Teal as well for basically this entire season. So, they've really covered their grounds. Their offense looks pretty dangerous. A lot of their young guys are starting to, emerge into a really solid core. But there's still they're still bound for some regression in some areas. But for now, they are first place in the Central, looking really dangerous. Now it's time to dive into our series preview. The Texas Rangers Twins go down to Texas at Globe Life Field. Twins do love playing in Globe Life Field. Historically, over the last few years, they've had some pretty famous wins there. Texas overall as a team, 20th in batting average, 18th in on base percentage, 23rd in slugging, 17th in WRC plus, 25th in stolen base, 27th in run score. Their pitching is a lot better. That is their strong suit. 7th in ERA, 15th in FIP, 16th in K rate, 6th in WHIP, and a pretty decent building team, 9th in DRS, 9th in outs above average. And when I take a look at this Texas team, this is a team that, of course, won the World Series 3 years ago. Then you look at their roster, and it's just kind of like you look at it, and it's just kind of whatever. They've had a couple of injuries. Corey Seager hasn't been the superstar shortstop that we're used to him being. Carter, Danny Jansen, Josh Smith, a couple of their everyday guys that are currently on the injured list right now. And just in general, their big trade piece, Mackenzie Gore, who is starting tonight against the Twins, has been up and down. And this was a guy that I talked about with other people. Mackenzie Gore is rated really low by a lot of other neutral fans, and he's been really up and down. This is a chance for the Twins to really take off against a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, their roster is just they had like an all-time offense in 2023, and it's basically all gone. Simeon's gone, Garcia's gone, Garver's gone, Evan Carter they thought was going to be good. He really hasn't. He's not. Langford and Josh Young are good, but I believe right before we started recording, Corey Seager went on the concussion 7-day IL, if I remember that correctly. So no Corey Seager. It's just not a great offensive team. They can pitch pretty well. It's a big ballpark. It's hard to get the ball out of that park, but These games are going to be, can the Twins pitch at all? Because if they can, they should be able to outscore Texas.
Yeah, and White Langford is back off the injury list. He just came back, and he's still a guy that could be dangerous. He had a really good series down in Boston, but again, he's coming off injury, and this is a Twins team that you think with this how average the Texas line to below average this Texas lineup is can at least take it. You can at least take advantage of, get some innings, get some scoreless innings. Mike Paredes has shown that he can get scoreless innings. He did it in his last start against Texas. So hopefully, probably goes 3 to 3 innings. I would guess max tonight, and then you see what you have with the rest of the bullpen. Maybe Travis Adams gets things going. Cody Larson. We'll see. But on Wednesday, Sebby Matthews takes the bump, and he'll take on Kumar Rocker, a pitcher I've always liked for the Rangers, and really which Sebby is going to show up. Sebby had a really solid start to the year after he was recalled, and now he's a guy that has been kind of up and down in his last few starts. He had a really good start. He had a really bad start against Pittsburgh, a really solid start against KC, albeit a bit weird. And then he gives up 700 runs in 6 innings, gives up 3 home runs against Detroit. So, which version are we going to see from him?
Yeah, well, first of all, I also have liked Rocker going back to when he was drafted and didn't sign. I've always been a fan of his. But, Zebby, like you mentioned, it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde, but I'm optimistic because if you think about it, he's had good games against Miami and the Royals, who are bad offenses. And the healthy Tigers lineup is a pretty good offense. And the Pirates are a very good offense. Well, we just talked about it. The Rangers are a bad offense. They're 27th in runs. So if you sort of go by the trend, Sebby against a good offense, or against a bad offense, profiles like he's going to go 6 or 7 innings and give up, 2 runs or less. I don't want to put a specific number to it, but he's positioned for a good start, I think. And it's a home run preventing ballpark, which has been one of his big problems. So I like his odds here.
I agree. And, he gave up 3 home runs in his last start, albeit maybe a little bit fluky in some areas. The ball was really flying in Comerica Park that last series. But, this is a good bounce back start for him. If he can get to that 6 inning, 7 inning mark, especially with a bullpen game today, that would be really beneficial for the Twins. But also, they have an off day on Wednesday. It's a really inconvenient 3-game series because the World Cup is going on. The World Cup has been fantastic, by the way. I don't know if you guys have watched it. I don't know if you guys are soccer fans or not, but for me, I would say I'm knowledgeable on soccer, so it's been a really entertaining tournament so far. And so there's a game in Dallas tomorrow.
It's a good game. It's England versus Croatia. If you're a soccer fan, that's a good game.
It is a really good game, interesting game. A lot of these games have just been really thrilling, especially today. So so that the Twins do have the day off on Wednesday. That will be really beneficial. If, the bullpen can basically get 2 days of rest in the middle of the series. And then on Thursday, last game of the series, Joe Ryan back on the mound after a really good start against St. Louis. He takes on Jack Leiter. We have a question. We have put a question here on our doc. Can Buxton hit basically a nuke against Jack Leiter? Because that's what he did the last time he faced him.
Yes, he did. 479 feet, onto the concourse in center field above the bullpen. Jack Leiter, and I'm sort of calling back to last year's game, but my other point with this is that Jack Leiter has not been good this year. 3-6 with a 4.97 in a pitching friendly ballpark with a good defense behind him. And you compare Joe Ryan's 4-3, 3.17. A lot of times you do this with Ryan's games. This is really a game you should win, especially like you said, the bullpen will be rested. So really, this series, you really should try to go 2-1. You should win the Thursday game after an off day and then try to win one of these next 2. And then I believe the Rangers are in a wild card spot right now, so gain a game on them would be really helpful. And it's certainly, you're ducking DeGrom and Eovaldi. So it's really well positioned for the Twins.
The Twins are currently 3 games back of the Rangers, who are in that last wild card spot. It's kind of a mess between a lot of mediocre teams in the American League right now for that last wild card spot. But yeah, you're 3 games back, and realistically, if you win all 3 games, you could potentially leapfrog them in the wild card spot. You can even leapfrog the teams above you in Baltimore and Toronto, depending on how they do the series this week. Even Oakland as well, who played in a crazy 6-game stretch basically in Las Vegas. But the Twins are in a position to be in a okay position. I've tweeted this out before the White Sox series a couple weeks ago that after they spoke the Red Sox, the Twins were in a position to be in position, and then they completely fell. But now, after a good series win, you have a chance to at least be in the mix at least.
Yeah, I
five.
think that White Sox series in Chicago, they were in a wild card spot, but you think about how putrid they've been mostly for 3 or 4 weeks. They're 3 games out of they're one good week from a playoff spot again. The AL is a gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, and this is and depending on how you're going to manage the trade deadline or whatnot. But for now, like if you sweep Texas, which they definitely can, it's going to come to interesting conversations at least to where you are in the wild card race. Even though you're 4 games under 500, you're in the mix. So there's some questions to be raised there, and then take on those team in the middle in the this upcoming weekend that are kind of like the Twins in a way, but they've had a really bad stretch of games recently. They have the Angels this series, so probably they'll try to bounce back there. But for the most part, the D-backs are kind of in the same boat as the Twins. They've had a rough couple of weeks. So go my series predictions. I have a 2-1 right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they swept. I also wouldn't be surprised if they completely lose this series. But realistically, the pitching matchup, you have a favorable pitching matchup, and you just have a favorable hitting matchup as well because you don't have to face Evaldi and DeGrom this series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm with 2-1, and Central also has 2-1, and obviously, I think it would be a sweep would be fun. It would be fun to kind of get a fun special run he started here, just because you think back the symmetry of obviously we all know what happened on a Sunday afternoon in Arlington in 2024. We all remember. We all remember what happened in the last 40 games of that year, and it'd be kind of fun to get something going starting in Arlington. So 2-1 is my prediction.
Yeah, and even though that infamous day in August of 2024 happened, you also go back to the season prior where Jordan Lupo hit a very famous opposite field home run, and really in that series, if I remember, the Twins were just teeing off the ball in that series, and
Yeah, that was when it became clear they really were a contender that year, that series.
and if you can do something similar in 2023, you have a big series win again. It felt like this Cardinal series, kind of give another boost to the season. A couple times this year, it's felt like okay, they're gonna come crashing down. The season's gonna officially end, but now you're in a situation again where the season can really get back on track. Even if you don't sweep, you take 2 out of 3. That puts you about a game or so out of the wild card race. You have a X team that you can favorably match up against. Who knows?
Yeah, and we've just talked about trying to tread some water because finally you should be getting Abel back next trip through the rotation. Rojas maybe the week after that, Ober maybe the week after that, Jeffers the week after. Like this can all change with one Joe Ryan injury or Buxton injury or whatever, but that's the nature of sports. But it seems like you kind of were able to weather this thing if you can win this series and start to finally get healthy again.
But we'll have a lot more to say on this week in after the Texas series ends. That will be when our next podcast episode comes up. Be sure to follow us on our Twitter at Twins Takes Pod. Be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube at Twins Takes. We'll have a lot more shorts hopefully coming up this week, and just in general, hopefully you have an episode very quickly on Thursday, whether it's live or not. We'll let you know. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is Troy John, and that's Twins Insider. We'll see you guys later. See you.
Will said 1 and 2. We don't forget it.
Don't forget, we'll hold him accountable for that. Thank you guys for listening.